manipulative and you don't get people a chance to say no. It's literally one of the defining moments in practice that's allowed us to completely change the game. Give me my money back for the exam. What part of my brain am I leading from? What do you believe about yourself right now? It wasn't random, it was revealing. That was revealing are the places where, one, I might have still been insecure in myself and my identity and what we do, and two, places where I had strategies and tactics in place inside of the office that were not congruent with what God says how we should operate. Yo, what's up, family? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Kimbley, and my beautiful wife, Heather, is here with us today.
Hello.
Today, we are going to talk about setbacks and challenges and how to overcome them. And here is the reality of everything that we'll talk about today. The challenges you are facing are not random. They are actually revealing. And the challenges that you are facing are actually a mirror into your life as an attempt for God to show you where you should go deeper, maybe to work on yourself, to upgrade your identity. And so today we're going to talk about challenges.
Cool.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So there's three things I think that chiropractors struggle with, and these are the things that usually keep you stuck from propelling forward inside of your life. It could be in business. It's not just about making money necessarily, but serving the people that you want to serve, having fun, living a life of passion. And those three things are, can you guess what the first one is?
No.
What most chiros struggle with?
The self-help thing.
I would say no, but that's a great guess. There's no right or wrong. I was just going to see if you get them. Number one is losing patience and taking it personally.
Oh, I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, I think that for me, I had a lot of challenges with this early on, and sometimes still do, but I've been way better about it because I think a lot of times that chiros think that they, and we'll talk about this more in detail, but when someone leaves the practice, we take it personally like we did something wrong, and not understanding that it's not a reflection of us. It's not a rejection of us. It's a rejection of something greater. And it might be just be a personal decision on the other side. The next thing most chiros struggle with, blaming cash flow on a lack of new patients.
Okay.
So I need more new patients.
Yeah.
We hear this all the time.
Yes.
It drives me crazy. New patients matter in the very, very beginning. But after that, they literally don't matter at all. It's just you got to upgrade your identity. And then the last one is, I think that what I see in practice and the chiropractors that I've worked with and the chiropractors I've coached is that they struggle with I just need anybody to come in my office. It doesn't matter if they're a good fit or not a good fit.
Quality, they don't care about them.
And so what they're really doing is building in a way that's not congruent. And that will completely wreck a practice.
That makes sense.
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
So if you want to have more fun, if you want to feel like you're winning every single day, day in, day out, if you want people to just be magnetized to your practice, my challenge for you is that it doesn't come down to another marketing strategy or another hack, but it actually comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that's kind of the title of this episode, or the thesis of this episode, is that you got to turn your setbacks and challenges into successes, because every single one of those is actually a success. So if you're looking to have more fun, if you're looking to make more money, if you're looking to stop the chase of new patients, and if you're looking to just have a business that you are proud of and that you love and that you feel secure in regardless of what happens, and I guarantee you it will grow, and you want your practice to grow, the opportunity for you is listening to the rest of the episode is going to completely transform the way you think about your business, the way you think about your leadership, and this can trickle over directly into your home life as well. Should we begin?
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. So I'm going to share the story of the really bad Google review that we had. How long ago was that?
Which one? I'm just kidding.
Oh, smooth. We've had 3 total in the history of practicing.
And 2 of them had zero affiliation with anything that we have done.
Well, I think there actually were 3. There was one that was a woman who never been into our office. That was something about a post I made about antibiotics. That got removed. We had another one where the woman never came into our office. Her husband came in and she wrote the review, even though she never read an email, never talked to us on the phone, whatever. But then the other review that we got was, it's a long-winded story, but I guess, well, let me just set the stage for it, I guess. I should probably just
you got to tell them now. Yeah.
Okay. So we had a client come in. They had some issues going on, and they were referred by another practitioner, a practitioner who I had not met. And I ended up, it just so happened that I just went to this networking event
of other providers.
And I spoke just briefly, and I talk about the brain in the most passionate way, as you know by now that I do, and almost over the top at some points. And somebody was like super intrigued, and they're like, well, how do you work with the brain? And I talked about balancing left side cortex, right side cortex through the techniques that we use. And they were like, hey, I have this patient for you. So and they sent me an email, and they followed up, and they said, hey, there's this guy that has this thing going on. Do you think you can help him? Mm-hmm. And my answer is always going to be, yeah, of course, dude. Chiropractic is like the most amazing thing ever because it can help everybody, not because we're amazing as practitioners, but because the body's amazing and the body knows how to heal itself. This is stuff I always talk about.
Right.
And so this guy comes into the office, and I've seen it before, and we talked about this retrospectively, but I've seen it before where when he came in, it was like there was just this, he was like here, but he wasn't here.
Like a glaze.
Yeah, like a glazed over. And it's like, I'm interested, but I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. And I fell into the trap of like, oh, dude, we got to help this person. Like, even if he doesn't want to be here, I'm going to like convince him to be here because he should be. And I know he's going to have his life radically transformed. Mm-hmm. So they come in for the exam. We do the exam. Everything seems fine. I'm stoked. Gave him an explanation that he hasn't had before. He's been dealing with these issues for like 3 or 4 years. Come back for the report of findings. Still, same thing, like this glazed over look, standoffish. Lets me get through my report of findings. And then at the end of it is like, I need to see your certifications in your cranial adjusting and your whatever. And he starts, so I like go get the certificate, literally go get the certificates out of the back, and I show them to him. And he's like, in the office, he says, I want you to delete all my records and basically give me my money back for the exam. And he's like, I know what you're doing. And I was so confused. And it like literally triggered an immediate stress response in my body. He's like, I know what you're doing. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
What am I doing?
And he's like, this is manipulative, and you don't get people a chance to say no. But it was at a time in practice where maybe that could have been true or not true. I don't think it was manipulative at all. My heart is like full on helping people. Everybody's known that. I might have had my ego in it a little bit more and sometimes versus others. This could have been one of those times for sure. But I think part of it was because I was so confident that we could actually help him,
right,
and allow his body to heal itself the way God designed us to be. So I basically was like, fine, dude, like if you're that upset about our process, like I'm happy to refund you, even though our paperwork gave full disclaimer that we're going to ask you to do a certain set of things and you need to be committed and all these things. Mm-hmm. So that was fine, and it was stressful, and it was like so weird. And we didn't delete his records because legally we can't do that.
Right.
We have to keep records on file for a certain amount of time, and I think in every state in the U.S. So long story short, a few days later, I get a review, and it's a long review. And it basically just calls out like that our techniques are manipulative and that it's, I don't know, something about like guarantees, and it's bold and it's brazen, and like there's all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it rocked my world.
It really did.
Like, can you just speak to how much it rocked my world?
I mean, you certainly went into a funk.
Yeah, I was in a funk for like a long time.
For several months.
And what it did is it had me question like the validity of literally everything that we're doing inside of our practice.
It did. Yeah.
And I started wondering based on this review, like maybe. And I'm like, dude, if you just knew my heart, like I literally just want to see people thrive.
Yeah.
And the part that frustrated me the most about it is that I realized that like by this person writing this review, it was potentially preventing other families who are struggling. And if you knew the amount of times I've seen people like this person who came into the office, who have seen multiple practitioners, not gotten results, been upset, and then had massive life transforming results inside of our office, then like that's the reason that I get so passionate. I'm so confident and so certain in it.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I literally just want to see you win. But something about the process that we took him through was offensive. Mm-hmm. And so we get this negative review, and like you said, it just shook me.
Yeah.
For months. Collections dropped. I was in a mood. People seemingly stopping care, and I was kind of taking all of it personal. Mm-hmm. Right. So am I missing anything in there?
No.
So basically, as I said, I was kind of in this place where I started questioning all of our practices. Like, am I being manipulative? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's right. And it just really, really got in my head. And I think there's a specific reason why, but I won't share that on this episode in terms of like what this person did for a profession. But that's a whole other side conversation. So basically, when I got to this point of like, what am I going to do? How am I going to get myself out of it? What I realized is that struggle and the setback of the review, which a lot of it was unfounded. And like, I had other people look at it and other people remind me that like, hey dude, there's no validity in a lot of this stuff. And like, what you guys are doing is super clean and it's honoring. And like, we have families thriving in here. But I had to be reminded of that. And other people had to remind me of that. And what I realized is it was a call from God to rebuild in the foundation of him.
Yes.
So one of the things that I was doing back in the day when this happened was that I was basically like, if somebody had a really tough case that they hadn't gotten results anywhere else, I'd be like, I'll give you your money back if you don't get results. And so I made that verbal commitment to this person. And I think that was the thing that kind of like put them over the edge. For some reason that was offensive, is that I was willing to literally like put our money on the line. Because I know what someone's innate potential is when we wake up their brain and balance their brain. So neither here nor there. What I realized in retrospect is that the setback and the challenge and the struggle wasn't something that was there to like hold me back or mess me up, but it was calling me higher. And so when I said in the beginning, it wasn't random, it was revealing. And what it was revealing are the places where, one, I might have still been insecure in myself and my identity and what we do. And two, places where I had strategies and tactics in place inside of the office that were not congruent with what God says how we should operate. Anything you would add to any of that?
Ego.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of ego. Lots of like, I'm going to get you results.
Yeah, you were thinking it was all about what you did and your technique and
exactly. And so, you know, like in this, I feel like there was so much that messed up the flow of the office. Like I was more in a mood with Danielle. It was also the same time of year when like we had to let one of our employees go. We had just had to do that.
Yeah.
So it was a big rebuilding year, and there are seemingly lots of setbacks and lots of challenges. And it was a struggle. And I finally, especially today, I look back on it and it's like, it's literally one of the defining moments in practice that's allowed us to completely change the game.
Right.
And we get better results now. People are happier. Like so many things that wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for that moment in time when I was completely wrecked.
Right. It felt very crushing in the moment.
I think for both of us. But you just saw how it messed me up and messed my head up.
Right.
And this is what I say is like a lot of people take it personally when someone leaves, and I was taking it super personally. But that was the lie, right? Like we talked about that in a different episode, the framework of like, what's the lie? Well, that was the enemy trying to convince me of something that wasn't actually true. So is there anything you would add to that before we jump into like the framework around like, okay, how do you deal with the setback?
No.
We doing good so far? All right, sweet. Okay. So here's kind of the framework. So there's this kingdom lens framework. So when you think of lenses, you think on like, you put on glasses, it changes how you see the world. I think there are 3 lenses which you can look at your identity and your business and your life through. And I'm going to share like, there's 3 sections. So if I could draw this out, I would draw it as a triangle. And there are 3 ways to look at what I'm about to share, but this will be breakthrough. And you can also share this with your patients too. So this is what's cool. So the first part is we have a neuro lens, right? So the question I would ask myself is this, is like, what part of my brain was leading? So in the moment, for months, agreed, was leading from a very fear part of my brain.
100%.
And even before that, I would argue that the ego was just trying to protect me from feeling like I wasn't worthy enough.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that
to
as
like
well.
do things in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so looking back on it, I realized like an important question I should have been asking myself is like, what part of my brain am I leading from? Am I leading from protection and insecurity, or am I leading from a place of full on like surrender and obedience and optimism and hope? Two different parts of the brain.
Yeah.
And we can talk a little bit about the neurology, but basically frontal cortex versus limbic system or brainstem.
Right.
So that's the first lens. The next lens is the identity lens. So what do you believe about yourself right now? And so in that moment, I couldn't ask myself this. And this is what's so cool is this framework came out of me like reflecting on the situation that was like, would you say is one of the lowest points of our practice?
Of the practice? Yeah.
Yeah. So for me and I'd been practicing, like it had been 5 years.
4
and a half, 5 years. So longest I'd ever been practicing at the time, but it was like the lowest point ever. And again, it was more revealing to me about who I was that needed to be changed because I wasn't operating within my true identity. And so there's this identity lens that asks the question of what is true, like what's the truth. And if I would have actually asked this question then when I was in the setback and in the challenge, what I would have found is that what was true is not the story that I was telling myself. Because I started telling myself like, oh, maybe I am a bad chiropractor. Maybe I am not good enough. Maybe it is like manipulative or whatever other stuff was like tried to be planted.
You were like second guessing everything that you had created.
Yep, literally second guessing everything. And it took me a long time to realize that like, no, you're here to help people. And I think this is a God thing.
Yeah.
Where it was just an upgrade in identity. And it's like, you just need to let people choose. Because if people, this is why I said one of the things that chiropractors struggle with, people take it personally like it's a reflection or rejection of you, but I would argue that it's a rejection of God and what God put within them. So if someone stops care now, or they decide I'm not going to get under care, I think that they don't have the belief within themselves that God actually gave their body the ability to heal the way that we talk about in the context of our practice. Are there other places they could help find that healing and access it within their own body? I think 100% for sure. But it's not a rejection of me. It's a rejection of something greater that I don't need to be upset about because it's not me who's getting hurt and I don't need to protect myself from it.
Yeah. It's not personal in that regard.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
I feel like you have a question.
No.
And then the last lens is the leadership lens. So what does my team or practice need from me right now is the question that you would ask. So for me, I never asked that question. I was just trying to like figure out on my own, what do I do?
For yourself.
Yeah. But I never gave consideration to like, what does Danielle need or what do you need? And I think it was just the three of us at the time. I was just kind of like walking through life, trying to figure out like, how do I not be so stressed out? How do I not feel like practice is all going to fall apart? How do I not feel like I'm a complete phony and like the, oh my gosh, what's the terminology? Imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's the framework, right? So it's like the leadership framework, you have three, is asking the question, neurologically, where am I operating from? From an identity perspective, what's true? And then from a leadership perspective, like what does my team need from me right now? And that's really what I learned through the struggle, was that the solution is actually this framework, because if you can stop and ask yourself the questions, as soon as you start to ask yourself the questions, you pull yourself back up to your true identity.
Because you're more conscious and aware of it, or?
Because you're more conscious and aware. And I know we kind of talked about that in another episode, but it's like the awareness is key. But if we don't know the questions to ask, then I wandered aimlessly for months trying to figure out like what's wrong with me, what do I do next, how do I not let the whole practice fall apart? I feel like I'm falling apart, but it's because someone else made me feel unworthy. But if I'm getting my identity from what one client thought about me, I'm not getting my identity from what God said about me.
Yeah, you were making it about yourself versus...
So we talk about being selfish.
Yeah.
It's like the most selfish thing that I could possibly do is take offense. And then how did I show up for every other person in the office? Probably not as well.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Which then it shows. And then the chiro wondered, well, I need more new patients because people are just leaving, or I can't get people to stick around, or people are saying no to care, or people aren't calling and scheduling in the first place. And this is like such the key, is that it's actually your identity that messes up your practice and how you show up on a day-to-day basis. It's not the new patients. It's not how many people are coming in and out of your doors. It's how you're showing up. And that's what creates the growth and the expansion. And again, if the problem is that you don't feel like you have enough new people, my question, instead of just trying to chase new people, would maybe be leaning into God and say, God, what are you trying to reveal to me about where I'm putting my worth with people who are coming in and out of my life?
Yeah, yeah.
Because if your self-worth is in a number of new patients,
or the amount you bring in each month.
Yeah. What's God going to do? He's going to try to challenge that because he doesn't want you to have it, because he's showing you, it's revealing to you that that's not the real thing that you should be putting your identity in the first place.
Right, right.
So we have to root our identities in like, this is what's true and who I am as a person. And I talked about the framework on another episode of the podcast. If you want it, just DM me. I'll send you you can DM my identity and I'll send you the framework. It's a series of questions that walk you exactly through what I've done over and over and over again to get to the truth so that I can show up for people in a better way. And what has it allowed me to do? It has allowed me to lead better. It's allowed me to create more frameworks inside of my practice that people can follow and be more successful, both as a team and as clients. I just had somebody today reach out to me. I'm sorry, I'm like fired up on this one. This, I was telling you this morning, I'm like, this dude's talking to me and he's like, hey, what do you charge to do this thing, to have this conversation? And I was like, bro, I'm not going to charge you for that. But I had this realization that, like, think about how far I've come. I didn't even have to ask the person for money.
Yeah.
In the context that I won't give away the situation, but I didn't even have to ask. Like, they were offering to pay me.
Right.
Because I created so much value in his life.
Yes.
And that's like the name of the game, is to show up. And then when you show up, people are just like, can I just pay you because you're amazing?
Right, right.
But you have to show up as your true self. You have to know your identity to do it. It's so cool.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
What else?
Most people are putting their identity in the amount of new clients that you said, or new patients, the monthly revenue that they're streaming in, the technique specifically, like all that kind of stuff.
Or the results that people get.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's where I struggled for a long time, is I thought in my head that I was getting people results. So then it was about, I'm like, oh, I'm so good. And like, listen to the thought process in this. I'm so good that I will give you your money back if I don't get you results that you told me that you wanted. But that doesn't leave room for God to work the miracle that he can work in each one of our lives and in our own bodies.
Yes.
Because guess what? What I know from a principled chiropractic perspective, the body does the healing, not us.
Right.
And the body's always done the healing. A surgeon can only do stitches. They can't actually heal the tissue. The body heals the tissue. Like, we don't go to bed at night and we have to remind ourselves for our heart to beat. We don't go for a run and we have to remind ourselves that we need to build up the bone that we just broke down from the tiny little microfractures and activate osteoclasts and osteoblasts to do this work to build up the bones. Like, we have trillions of processes that happen in our body. I'm not smarter than that. And no practitioner could be smarter than that.
Yeah.
But my identity was rooted in someone's results. And then what I'm doing is I'm literally hinging my identity on something other than what God has in store for that person in the first place, which makes me smarter than God in my own eyes. And I literally just had this the other day in church where do you remember what I told you? What did God say to me? He said, you think you're a better healer than me.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I remember.
And I was like, no, I don't. And he's like, yeah, you do. Or else you wouldn't get upset
when people don't get results.
No, not when people don't get results, but when I hear somebody get results and it's from something other than chiropractic.
Oh.
And he's like, you literally think you're a better healer than me. And I'm like, because you're like, that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to share, is that the struggle is going to be revealing. And I had this struggle to reveal to me that, like, you don't get the results, I get the results. Put God in the proper place. And so it was just building my identity. And it's the biggest gift because now I get to have more fun.
Because you're not stressing and worrying about the other.
And if I'm not stressed and I'm not worried, and it's not built on me, which is a burden and exhausting, then guess what? If I'm not worried anymore and I'm fully surrendered, guess who's more present? Me. And if I'm more present, guess who gets the benefit of the more presence? The people that I adjust and take care of.
And me.
And my wife. and my daughter. And if they benefit from my more presence and my chilled out lack of control now, guess who gets better results? Everybody else in my life.
Yeah.
Including the team that works around me.
Yes.
So like, it's a leadership principle. It's a God principle. It's a home principle. But so often we're pushed to just be like, oh, need 90 new patients in 90 days, 30 new patients in 30 days. You got to increase your revenue. You want to do 7 figures in revenue. And I'm like, I'm not saying any of those things are bad. Like, it's good. We should be able to make a lot of money. But if that's where our identity is, God is going to reveal and give us problems and struggles because he wants to break it off of us to get us closer to him, because he's a good dad.
Yeah.
It's just like this. If like Coco wants me to play Legos with her, sometimes I don't want to play Legos, but guess what? I do it because I'm a good dad, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's just a good dad. He wants to be around us, but he's like, I can't be around you if you think that you're better than me, or you don't even have a place for me in the first place. So we got to make a place.
Right.
So the myth is that struggle equals failure, but it's not true. Struggle is actually just a revealer. It's a mirror. And so like, how I would kind of explain it, I think this is what's so special, and the eyes and the awareness that I've been able to be given as a result of trusting like what my true identity is in. You can look at someone's life, you could look at your own life and see like, okay, where are my struggles? That's where I'm being called to work, because there's something out of order. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you want to give an example for that?
Yeah, I would love to give an example of that. So for me, why was I given the struggle of someone literally calling out our practice and being like, hey, you guys are manipulative and like you don't even give people an option to say no? It's because it was built on my ego and what God wants to do. He wanted to be like, hey, we got to eliminate some of the ego, bro. Because for what I have in store for you, you can't take it with you because you'll mess it up. Or you'll want to be on more stages and you'll want whatever.
Right.
And it'll be about you again. It won't be about me.
Yeah.
And so he gave me the struggle so that I could work through it. And if I didn't work through it and I didn't get a handle on it, guess what would happen? Another one would show up in the exact same way. And this is why people will have struggle with relationships over and over and over and over again.
Like the same issues in a relationship.
The same issues, yeah. Or it's like, I don't understand like why why I'm not married yet, or every guy that I meet just happens to be blah, blah, blah. It's like, maybe God's trying to show you something. It's not for me to tell you what he's showing you. A lot of times I know, but if you're getting challenged in finances, maybe finances are your idol that he's trying to break you from. And then if you realize that like, oh, as soon as I just surrender to it and I trust that God always has me and he always will, then now my identity is not in the finances, it's in something deeper. And he can trust you with the finances because he knows you're not going to fall back on those as your source. Realize that those are just a resource. There's so many examples. Yeah. And it's like, what's crazy to me, I think that the more I'm just like, it's just going to work itself out, the more like things just show up. And I think that's the true quote unquote law of attraction. Yeah.
Well, life is more joyful too, because you're not like stressed and worried and trying to hyper control every situation.
Yep, exactly. And that it's so interesting. I love that you brought up control, because I think that part of what this whole thing is actually about is like when we talk, control is so good because you know as well as I do, like I used to be the most controlling. I want to be in control of everything. I want to be in control of traffic. I want to be in control of music. I want to be in control of the temperature. I want to be in control of how you do the things at the front desk and the words that you say. And like, I want to be in control of all of it.
Yes.
But God isn't like you have to let go of control. And that's what I've had to do, because what's really happening is like, if you're having the struggle, remember, struggle does not equal failure. You're actually being called and you're being led somewhere. So like Jesus is the shepherd and he's leading us somewhere, and he's leading us to the most special place ever. But most of the time we won't give up enough control to actually ever get there. And so if you realize like the struggle is actually you being led somewhere cooler. And I wish I would have known this when I shared that struggle with you guys about the review, is because like if I would have known that I was being led here, dude, I would have not been frustrated for months on end
Months, yeah.
and like wasted so much time.
It would have been a faster.
But it had to happen that way because that's how I get an upgrade in identity. But I had to be challenged in the very thing where I was like not, we could say, I don't know, wholesome might be the right word, whatever it is. But it's a calling to be led into an uncomfortable circumstance so that you can be upgraded. Last little bit. So let's recap. So there's a framework, right? So it's like the Chiro leadership identity framework. So there's a neuro frame or neuro lens. There is an identity lens. And so let me go back. I'll just share the questions with you again. The neural lens, you're asking the questions, what part of the brain am I operating from or what part of the brain am I leading from? The identity lens, what is true? What is the truth about me? And then the leadership lens is what does my team need for me in this moment? And when you start to ask yourself those questions, you can start to break yourself out of this idea that like the struggle is there to hurt you or that it means failure, when actually you can just realize pretty quickly, I think, from those three questions and those three lenses that you're just being called somewhere higher. And then, you know, I think as we wrap up, just remember that your struggle is actually being, it's a call to be led so that you can grow further. And I think that's the most important thing to remember for this episode is that every struggle is revealing. It's not random. It's revealing. They're a mirror for your life and what's possible. So if you're watching and you want more, subscribe, leave a comment, like it, leave a rating. And then 2, if you want this kingdom leadership identity triangle that I talked about on the episode and you want it drawn out for you with some practical steps on how you can implement it inside of your life, just send me a DM on Instagram and you can just say, send me that identity thing that you talked about in the podcast episode, and I'm happy to send it up to you. We love you so much. We'll come at you again next week. Peace.